I used to believe that doing the right thing was enough. That if you showed up, worked hard, stayed late when no one else did, and made yourself indispensable, life would reward you in time. I believed that skill mattered, that truth prevailed, that the system, for all its flaws, couldn't ignore merit forever. That belief died the day I got fired. My name is Adam Kern. At 29, I was the quiet guy in the back room of DigiForge Technologies, a mid-size cybersecurity firm based out of Seattle. Officially, I was a systems integrity analyst. Unofficially, I was the guy who kept the entire infrastructure from falling apart. If there was a breach, I was the one patching it. If a database froze, I revived it. If a server hiccuped in Singapore at 3 a.m., I got the call. I didn't complain. I liked it. No suits, no boardrooms. Just lines of code and a system I could understand. At least, I thought I could. When I first joined DigiForge 3 years ago, the company was hemorrhaging clients. Their SOC, Security Operations Center, was an embarrassment. It took 6 months and a complete overhaul, but I rebuilt it from scratch. Redundant firewalls, anomaly detection powered by a modified deep packet inspection tool I coded myself, and a zero-trust access policy that finally locked down their internal documentation leaks. We turned the tide. By Q4 of my second year, we were inking contracts with Fortune 500 firms. No one in the upper floor said thanks, but I saw my fingerprint on every deal, every uptick, every win. Then the CEO's son showed up. Dylan Mercer, 25, Armani everything, head of strategic innovation. No resume, no credentials, but a 6-figure salary and his name on a frosted glass door. He brought his dog to work, held meetings at rooftop bars, and once asked me to reset his VPN because the screen was blurry. I tried not to judge. Nepotism wasn't new. But something about him itched under my skin. He didn't just inherit privilege, he weaponized it. And beneath the smooth smile, I saw something colder, something dangerous. The first red flag was subtle. A scheduled script I'd written to monitor outbound traffic threw an alert one night. Nothing huge. Just a few megabytes being transmitted from an internal IP to an unknown external node in Prague. It was encrypted, but not with our tools. I flagged it. Filed a report, nobody responded. A week later it happened again. Then 3 more times. Each time from a different internal terminal. Always late. Always masked, always routed through obscure proxies. I traced one to a machine in the executive wing. When I pinged the MAC address, I froze. It belonged to Dylan. I stared at that screen for 10 full minutes. I didn't want to believe it. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe someone was spoofing his device. Maybe it wasn't what it looked like. But it looked like exfiltration. Sensitive files. Internal presentations. Proposal blueprints, even, God help me, parts of the source code for Sentinel, our flagship security platform. I compiled a local snapshot, just for reference, just to be sure. And I waited. For the next 3 nights, I didn't sleep more than 2 hours. I reviewed every log, every packet, every trace. Dylan wasn't being hacked. He was the leak. I was watching it happen in real time. He was feeding internal assets to someone on the outside. Competitors. I didn't know who yet. But I knew what. I didn't know what to do. I'd worked too hard. I'd built too much. If I raised this and I was wrong, it would destroy me. But if I stayed silent, I was complicit. Every instinct told me to tread carefully. But I wasn't careful enough, because somewhere along the way, he saw me watching. And everything I had, was about to burn. It started with a meeting request. Urgent. CISEC breach review. 9 a.m. Exec boardroom, sent by Amanda Holt, the VP of IT, CC'd to the CTO, the HR head, and curiously, Dylan Mercer. I felt a tightness crawl up my spine. I walked into that room with a full dossier in my briefcase. Packets, logs, timestamps, the Prague node, MAC addresses, everything. I'd spent all night compiling it. I had the truth. I just needed to say it out loud. But the moment I stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. They were all already seated. Amanda didn't make eye contact. Dylan lounged at the far end, flipping a silver pen between his fingers like a bored prince waiting to be entertained. The CTO looked grim. HR had a manila folder in her lap. The air felt like glass. One wrong word and it'd shatter. "Adam," Amanda said, her voice smooth but cold. "We've identified a serious breach. Sensitive files were leaked to external IPs over the past 2 weeks. Upon internal review, the activity was traced to your credentials." I blinked. "No," I said immediately. "That's wrong. I've been tracking those leaks. It wasn't." "We have packet logs," Dylan cut in, finally speaking. "We found code injections routed through your subnet. One of them even originated from your terminal at 2:14 a.m. on the 9th. I felt the floor tilt. I hadn't been in the office on the 9th. I'd worked remotely. My terminal had been powered off. But the logs, they could spoof that. Someone had. "I didn't do this," I said, slower now, voice tightening. "I've been tracking this breach for over a week. And the machine doing the exfiltration? It belonged to Dylan." Amanda's face hardened instantly. "That's a serious accusation." "It's backed with data," I snapped. I opened my briefcase, pulled out the files. "Here. Right here. I have MAC traces. Destination nodes. Logs. They don't match my signature. They match his. Look." "We're not here to debate, Adam," the HR director said, sharply. "Effective immediately, your access to all company systems is revoked. You will be escorted out. Your severance package is being prepared. Any further action may result in legal consequences." I laughed, a hollow, stunned sound. "Are you kidding me? I brought you the truth and you're throwing me under the bus?" Dylan just smiled. That smug, calculated smile that told me he knew I'd lost the moment I walked in. Security appeared behind me. Suits. One placed a hand on my arm. "Sir." I wanted to scream. To throw the evidence across the table and force them to see. But it wouldn't matter. Dylan had turned the game. Used my own monitoring tools against me. He must have copied my logs, rerouted packets, used access from my terminal. Maybe even with credentials he stole from cached sessions. I'd seen the signs. I'd hesitated. And now I was the fall guy. They walked me past people I'd worked with for years. No one looked at me. In less than 30 minutes, I was standing on the curb holding a cardboard box with my nameplate, a backup drive, and my old coffee mug. Everything I'd built, gone. For 3 days I didn't speak. I didn't eat. I just sat in my apartment, lights off, screen glowing in the dark, staring at the last clean copy of the logs I'd saved before being locked out. I replayed the boardroom moment over and over, trying to understand how Dylan had moved so fast, how he'd seen me coming. Then it hit me. He knew because he'd been watching me too. That meant the breach wasn't impulsive. It was orchestrated, planned, executed with precision. He'd run circles around the entire system, my system, and then pin the collapse on the only person who could expose him, me. But what he didn't know was that I still had the keys to something far more dangerous than his proxies and log spoofs. My mind. And I wasn't done. The first week after they fired me was pure collapse. I barely left my apartment. I ignored texts, deleted emails, canceled job board notifications. I sat there every night staring at that same terminal, the only one I trusted. My apartment felt like a morgue for ambition. The curtains were drawn, my phone face down, the only light from the screen's soft glow. I played the breach over and over in my mind, not because I didn't believe it, because I did. Dylan had outplayed me, and I hated him for it. But more than that, I hated myself for not acting faster. But then something shifted. One night around 2 a.m., I opened the backup I'd made, the one I hadn't handed over. The snapshot Dylan didn't know existed. I ran a full trace, line by line, bit by bit. Not just outbound traffic patterns, but encryption signatures, key lengths, timestamps, residual hex signatures from executable cache files he probably thought were wiped. And there it was, a signature buried deep in a data fragment, DM1998X. Dylan Mercer's self-written encryption key for his experimental app, the one he bragged about in some puff piece interview months ago. He'd reused the same signature in the data packets. Sloppy, arrogant, exactly what I needed. That was my moment. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. For the first time since the betrayal, I didn't feel anger. I felt clarity. This wasn't just about getting revenge. This was about building something no one could take from me. Something immune to suits, politics, and nepotism. Something stronger, faster, smarter. I wasn't going to fight Dylan from the shadows. I was going to outgrow him, outrun him, outshine everything he stood for. I started by laying the foundation. I registered a domain under a fake name, obsidianlock.io, a ghost domain. No public IPs, no traceable WHOIS entries, just a placeholder. Then I built the prototype, an adaptive threat detection engine, powered by a hybrid model I'd been developing off the clock for 2 years. Something no company had. It combined behavioral analysis with user-auth fingerprinting, not just tracking what someone did on a system, but who they really were, based on micropatterns. Typing cadence, command syntax, query depth. It couldn't be faked. Not even by someone like Dylan. Then came the legwork. I needed proof. Not just that Dylan had framed me, but that he'd been selling company secrets. And for that, I went back into the undernet. Not the dark web forums run by kids and wannabes, but the real ones. Obscure data markets buried under 15 hops of Tor and I2P. I posed as a buyer. Search for key phrases, Sentinel-0, Digiforge AI leak, code fragments. After a week, I found it. A vendor going by REDGULF had posted sample data for sale, snippets of our source code, internal slides, pitch decks, with watermarks removed. When I decrypted the preview, I found a line in the metadata that hit me like a bullet. Compiled by dmercer/Seattle. He was so sure he was untouchable, he didn't even strip his own metadata before packaging the files. That was all I needed. I screen captured everything, downloaded the preview, time-stamped, notarized hashes. I had evidence now, not just of my innocence, but of his guilt. Solid, indisputable. But I wasn't going back to Digiforge to hand it in. No, that chapter was dead. I was building my own empire now. Next, I needed allies. I reached out to Maya, an ex-teammate who'd quit 6 months earlier after a massive falling out with Amanda. She was bitter, brilliant, and better than me at front-end security architecture. Then, Felix, a cloud systems expert from Berlin I'd met during a bug bounty program in 2022. He owed me a favor. Then, Layla, a cryptographic genius who'd once rewritten an entire SSL library in Rust just for fun. I pitched them the idea, showed them the prototype. They didn't hesitate. We weren't just building a product, we were building a fortress. While they coded, I made calls, used the last of my savings, pulled every contact I had. Found a VC firm run by a former security analyst, someone who hated big corporate politics as much as I did. He saw the vision, saw the potential. He wrote us a check for $800,000. Suddenly, we weren't ghosts anymore. We were real, registered, hunted. And I was just getting started. We called ourselves Obsidian Lock. The name wasn't random. Obsidian, volcanic glass, forged under pressure. Sharp, unbreakable. Lock for what we were building, an unbreachable gatekeeper between systems and chaos. Our manifesto was simple. No gatekeepers, no favoritism, just truth, just code. We operated out of a basement co-working space in downtown Seattle. Flickering lights, concrete floors, terrible ventilation. But it was ours. Maya lived off caffeine and dark techno playlists, constantly reworking our UI to be so intuitive even non-tech clients could monitor their own breach attempts in real time. Felix, halfway across the world, barely slept, reconstructing entire cloud protocols for scalable, decentralized protection. Layla built encryption modules like symphonies. Elegant, unbreakable, fast. I didn't manage. I led. I didn't breathe down necks. I stayed ahead of them. While they coded, I hunted. Contracts, demos, leaks, weak points in our competitors. I spent hours each day watching how DigiForge marketed Sentinel, the very product I'd once helped design. I found all the cracks. Every bloated module, every missed patch, every customer complaint on obscure Reddit threads. Then I cold called those clients. At first, they didn't take me seriously. You're what, a startup? Why should we trust you over DigiForge? You're just 4 people in a basement. But then I gave them the demo. 5 minutes. That's all it took. They watched as Obsidian Lock flagged a known exploit in their system before their existing firewall even blinked. They saw real-time intrusion maps, user behavior trees, forensics tools built right into the dashboard, no bloated interface, no sales fluff, just clarity, speed, precision. The first client to sign was a logistics firm out of Chicago. Their data was getting scraped weekly, and they had no clue how. We deployed within 72 hours. They called us a miracle. Paid up front. Referrals followed. Then came a mid-tier healthcare provider, bleeding patient data through outdated APIs. Then an international marketing firm. By the end of month 3, we had 7 clients. By month 4, we had 22. Each deal we closed, I pictured Dylan's face. I imagined him sitting smug in his glass office, unaware that the very people who once relied on his father's company were now secured by the man he humiliated. We weren't just a threat. We were becoming the alternative. Then the big break came. A company called Trivax International, a billion-dollar financial tech firm, was looking for a full-stack cybersecurity overhaul. They were considering 3 vendors. One was DigiForge. Another was a European conglomerate. The third? Us. Obsidian Lock. We shouldn't have stood a chance. But I knew something the others didn't. Trivax had been burned before. A breach 2 years ago left their executive data on the dark web. It had never gone public. But I had the forensic trail in my private files. During the pitch, I didn't humiliate them. I showed them how our system would have caught it 6 hours earlier than theirs did. Not only that, I walked them through a live demo, on their own servers. No sandbox, no fake tests. They signed a $2.5 million contract the next morning, and just like that, we weren't a rogue team anymore. We were a cybersecurity force. I hired 5 more engineers, moved us into a real office, glass walls, real desks, dedicated fiber line. For the first time, I had a team with benefits, payroll, insurance. I paid everyone above market, because I knew what it felt like to be undervalued. And then it happened. DigiForge lost 2 of their biggest clients. One of them was Trivax. The other was RevNet, a tech giant I once helped onboard back in my DigiForge days. They reached out directly to me, said they heard I was the one who actually knew what I was doing. That was the moment I knew. We weren't just building a product. We were erasing the old system, one contract at a time. But I wasn't done. I had one final card to play. Remember the metadata I'd uncovered in the data leaks? Dylan's signature, the screenshots, the vendor REDGULF selling DigiForge secrets online? I'd sat on it, waiting, watching, making sure every fact was in place. I didn't want revenge. I wanted consequence. So I handed it all to a cybersecurity journalist, not anonymously, with my name, my company, my story. 2 weeks later, the headline exploded across LinkedIn, Twitter, Medium, Reddit. Whistleblower reveals CEO's son behind DigiForge data leak. The article detailed everything. The prog node, the false logs, the boardroom ambush, the cover-up, and my rebirth as founder of Obsidian Lock. It went viral. Security forums lit up. Investors dropped DigiForge stock within days. Their CEO went silent. And Dylan Mercer? Gone. Disappeared from all public listings. Rumors swirled. Resigned. Exiled. Maybe worse. But I didn't care anymore. Because now I wasn't Adam Kern the scapegoat. I was Adam Kern, CEO of the fastest rising cyber defense company on the West Coast. And I'd built it not despite what they did to me, but because of it. They called me a ghost, a myth, a revenge story in a hoodie. But I was very real, and by the time they realized it, it was far too late. The fallout from the article was brutal. Digiforge's stock tumbled 38% in a week. Their quarterly investor call was canceled. Multiple clients terminated contracts citing unacceptable internal risk. I watched it all unfold with the kind of quiet satisfaction that doesn't come from revenge. It comes from justice. I didn't want their collapse. I wanted my truth back. And now, finally, I had it. Industry blogs called me the silent architect behind Digiforge's golden years. I never confirmed it. Never needed to. My silence said more than any press statement ever could. People did their homework. They pieced it together. All the security advances, the breach protections, the custom frameworks. All gone the moment I left. That's when RevNet made the call. They were dropping Digiforge entirely. They wanted a full migration, 42 servers across 3 continents, high risk, insane complexity, massive liability, a perfect storm. And they trusted us to handle it. We did it in 10 days. No downtime, no data loss, complete internal security overhaul. They paid $6.8 million. That project turned us into a giant. Recruiters flooded our inboxes. Government contracts started whispering. University research labs, fintech, biotech, even a discreet inquiry from a certain 3-letter agency. We had crossed the threshold from promising to dominant. One afternoon, as I walked into our new downtown high-rise office, I saw something that stopped me cold. A Digiforge van parked outside. I waited, watched. 2 techs were unloading cables, moving into a different floor. They were downsizing. Reality struck hard. Just 2 years ago, I was the one in a hoodie, buried in their back room, eating ramen at my desk. Now, their techs looked just like I had. Burned out, underpaid, overworked. But the difference? I built my empire with transparency. No handouts, no shortcuts. Every line of code written with scars behind it. I didn't need to rub it in. The world had already drawn its own conclusion. Then, one afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I picked up. Adam, this is Amanda Holt. My chest tightened. I hadn't heard that voice since the day she helped escort me out. My silence was heavy. I owe you an apology, she said. I didn't know what Dylan was doing. I didn't have the full picture. I should have listened to you. That would have been nice back then, I said quietly. I was wrong, she said. Everyone was. If there's anything I can. I don't need anything, I said. But I appreciate the call. She hesitated. Then added, he's gone. Dylan. His father pulled strings to avoid charges, but he's not welcome in the industry anymore. No one will hire him. He's radioactive. I didn't say anything. I didn't gloat. I just let it sit. I hung up with one simple word, good. That evening, I held our first full-team company dinner. 30 employees. Smart, sharp people from all over the world. Not a single one of them hired through a friend of a friend or backroom deal. Every single one there. Because they were the best at what they did. I stood at the head of the table, glass in hand. You know, I said, when I got fired, I thought that was the end of my story. Turns out it was just the prologue. They laughed. Not polite laughter. Earned laughter. Real. Honest. Because they knew. They'd seen the files. The screenshots. They knew what it meant to be overlooked, underestimated, discarded. We don't build security software, I said. We build truth. And truth, unlike lies, doesn't expire. They raised their glasses to Obsidian Lock, to us, to the team that turned a betrayal into a fortress. Sometimes I still think about that morning, The one where I walked out of Digiforge with a cardboard box and a severance letter that read like an obituary. I think about how lost I felt, how ashamed. Back then, I thought everything I had built had been taken from me. But I was wrong. The truth is, they didn't take anything from me. They just forced me to stop giving everything to people who never deserved it. Obsidian Lock isn't just a company, it's a statement. It stands for every late-night coder who fixed a server without getting credit. Every analyst whose report was handed up the chain and buried. Every worker who spoke the truth and got burned for it. Every invisible expert who was told to know their place by someone with the right last name. When I sit in my office now, floor-to-ceiling windows, skyline views, a quiet hum of focused energy around me, I don't feel like I won something. I feel like I earned it. Every deal we sign, every breach we prevent, every engineer we hire on merit, not legacy, those are victories. Quiet ones, but real. I learned a lot over the past year. I learned that integrity costs more than people think, but it's worth even more. I learned that dignity isn't given, it's claimed. And I learned that sometimes the worst thing that can happen to you is exactly what you needed. Would I go back and change what happened? No, not anymore. Because being fired forced me to stop playing small. It pushed me to build something of my own, something no one could ever take from me, something stronger than any job title or corporate brand. It taught me to stop asking for respect and start commanding it. And Dylan? He became a footnote, a cautionary tale whispered in corporate halls, the guy who thought he could fake it forever, the one who mistook privilege for talent, who thought no one would ever challenge him, until someone did. And now he's just a ghost in a system that doesn't welcome his kind anymore. People like Dylan can burn bridges, but people like me? We build empires from the ashes. So if you're reading this and you're the one staying late while others take credit, if you're biting your tongue while someone less competent talks over you, if you've been wronged, humiliated, overlooked, listen to me. You are not powerless. You are not invisible. You are not finished. They may silence you for a while. They may win the first round. But you are the storm they never saw coming. And when you rise, rise with intention. Rise with evidence. Rise with dignity. Because the people who underestimate you today will remember your name tomorrow. And not because you shouted it, but because they'll see it on contracts, on press releases, on the lips of the clients they used to own. That's what I did. And you can too. Now I sign every email with the same signature, Adam Kern, founder and AMP, CEO, Obsidian Lock built on truth, forged in fire.